Mr. Mayor, we're on to business discussion items for the afternoon. We have 2025-597 state requirements for traffic control devices with recommendation the City Commission replace non-conforming crosswalks with crosswalk markings that meet the requirements of Florida statutes and the MUTCD. Replace green shared lane markings with shared lane markings that meet the requirements of Florida statutes, the MUTCD, and replace any other non-conforming traffic control devices as they are identified.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is George Gadiel. I am the city's traffic operations manager, and I will be discussing the state requirements for traffic control devices. This presentation is based solely on engineering regulations and standards. So as an engineer, we're required to follow federal and state regulations. And on this slide, there are 3 regulations that have been adopted by the Florida Department of Transportation. The Manual on Uniform Minimum Standards for Design, commonly known as the Green Book, Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which I'll refer to as the MUTCD, and Manual on Speed Zoning for Highways and Roads. So as an engineer, these are the regulations that we're going to follow. We get a lot of requests from residents. We try to accommodate them as much as we can, but sometimes our hands are tied because we have to follow state regulations, federal standards. Recently, we received a memo from FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, referencing regulations, and that memo was addressing essentially that all jurisdictions in the state must follow the MUTCD and the Green Book, and we must, for all traffic control devices, including pavement markings, which is what I'll be discussing in a little bit. And essentially what that memo was saying is you need to follow these memos. You need to get everything into compliance, and if you don't, it's possible that the state could withhold state funding. The city receives millions of dollars from DOT for future projects, from reimbursements, for maintenance on a lot of different things. Also, there is a Florida statute that kind of goes along with that. Essentially, it's saying the FDOT, if they find devices, traffic control devices that are not that do not meet the current standards and regulations, that they can direct the jurisdictions to remove them or get them into compliance. And if you end up having to remove the device, then it's possible that up to 5 years you may not receive any funding for that device from there. And again, it also mentions the whole you could lose future funding if you don't meet the current standards, and this applies to all public roads. So now the discussion on the known devices in the city that are non-conforming. We have 3 crosswalks located on First Street. These were placed via commission back in September of 2019. The materials were donated by the Pride Community Center at a cost of $10,000. And then also we have green shared lane markings that are located on bike boulevards, and there's some on South Main Street. So with respect to the crosswalks, so these crosswalks were installed obviously years ago before the current Green Book and the current MUTCD came out. Recently, those manuals were updated and then adopted by the state. And when these crosswalks were installed, there was not a regulation on this. Currently, the Florida Green Book explicitly says you shall not use pavement or surface art on any traffic control devices, including pavement markings, unless they are in direct support of public safety. Like I said, these rules were not in play when those were installed. The MUTCD, there's a little more leeway there. They do discuss colors. When it comes to the colors of devices, the MUTCD says the different colors are designated for different devices, like a stop sign is red, things along those lines. And it does say you're allowed to use pavement art as long as your chromaticity is outside of certain ranges. But then it also goes on to say that you're not allowed to use purely aesthetic surface treatments for the interior of a crosswalk, because it could encourage road users to stop in the middle of those lanes. So there's a little there. Sorry. And then this is just, I'm not going to read through this, but this is all the different colors that are designated by the MTCD. Every color means a certain thing. You can't just mix colors and like that. Like a stop sign's got to be red, that kind of thing. Then when it comes to the shared lane markings and the green pavements, it actually, the MUTCD explicitly says you shall not use green pavement markings for shared lane markings. That one's a lot more spread out or specific in the manual there. So, in final recommendations, Public Works is recommending that the non-conforming crosswalks with crosswalk markings that meet the requirements of replace non-conforming crosswalks with crosswalk markings that meet the requirements of Florida statutes and the MTCD. Replace green shared lane markings with shared lane markings in accordance with the requirements of the Florida statutes and the MTCD, and replace any other non-conforming traffic control devices as they are identified. And that wraps it up. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we hear anything from up here or down there, I just want to start off a few things. What you hear in this presentation is, if you just heard the presentation, you might think, oh, there's lots of room for debate here. The memo that we got from FDOT, together with a memo from the newish Secretary of Transportation, Federal Secretary of Transportation, makes it very clear what they're looking for here. There is no doubt in my mind, after lots of conversation with the city manager staff and with city attorney staff, what they're looking for. We don't have a separate pot of money that we can sit on and use for transportation, millions of dollars of transportation costs for several years to play chicken with FDOT or the U.S. Department of Transportation. We simply don't have that. Those funds don't exist. Cities don't do that. I mean, we have money for emergencies set aside, and we have money that we use in that year. And to do differently than that would mean you were being taxed too much, frankly. So we don't have the opportunity, in my opinion, after having had lots of these conversations, to say, we're just going to wait and see what happens. Because what happens is very clear. It's withholding the money is going to happen if we don't do what they've said do. They changed the MUTCD, the Green Book, very intentionally. There's no question about that. We are not the only city, by the way, that is having or has had this discussion. There are a number of cities in Florida that have already made the changes that we're discussing here. It is not a good position to be in. I was there with many of you in this room when we cut the ribbon on these rainbow crosswalks, and was there throughout that process. And I think this is absurd that we're being asked to do this. But we are. We've been given a choice. We can not have transportation money, or we keep our crosswalks. Or we have transportation money, or we keep our crosswalks. That is the choice before us. And to think that it is any different than that choice, I think we're deluding ourselves. Having said all that, what I hope we get today is some direction from the community and from all of us in this room to the community and to staff to come up with some really great ideas to reaffirm our support for everybody in Gainesville, including everybody who is part of the LGBT plus community in Gainesville. Be very clear that no matter who you are or where you come from or what you look like or whose hand you want to hold or what department of the store you buy your clothes in, I, as your neighbor and as mayor, am glad that you want to be in this city. So thank you for being a part of not only the discussion today and in general, but for being here and being my neighbor. I appreciate that. I don't want to make decisions like this, but we have to protect the bones of the city, in my opinion, or the whole thing comes apart. So I hope that we can come up with some good direction for making choices about what's next to reaffirm that we really do care about the LGBT community in the city. I don't want us to make snap decisions today if we can avoid it for what comes next, because we feel like we got to do something. Something is, let's get together and talk about this and make good choices. We're going to have to, I know what we have to do is, beyond that, we have to make some choices about the markings themselves. But for what's next, let's put good thought into this and make sure that we make good choices. And I've talked way too much, and now I want to hear from my colleagues and from you all. Commissioner Willets.
Mr. Mayor, to staff, maybe it's Mr. Gadiel, has FDOT identified funds available to pay for removing crosswalks across the state or in our community?
Good afternoon, Brian Singleton, Special Advisor for Infrastructure. No, there has been no funds identified from the state legislator to remove non-conforming devices.
Can we send them an invoice for those services that we made? I mean, just whether they pay it or not, is there a mechanism to send them an invoice?
I believe we could send an invoice, but we don't have an agreement, or there would be no duty for it to be paid.
Okay. How does communication normally work between FDOT when, there's an issue with our city roads or streets? This seems like it's big and blanket. Is there any other examples where they communicate with us about, specific roads, specific facilities that are deficient or need to change?
Typically, when we have some type of an agreement with the state, some type of maintenance agreement, a funding agreement, they will provide comments on whether something conforms to standards or not, if something's not being maintained in accordance with their standards. I'm not aware of them applying this particular statute in the past. Outside of the memo that has been received, there hasn't been a lot of communication on this.
Okay.
See, just for a minute, Mr. Singleton, again, on the situation on, I guess it's 8th, where we recently removed the zippers, and we were directed by the state to remove them, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, ma'am.
It was our cost, and what was that?
So on 8th Avenue, where we're doing the lane reconfiguration, that work was being done under a construction agreement. The state changed their opinion on what devices could be placed on their facility there. We negotiated that change order, and those costs was about $60,000.
Okay, thank you. And just so I understand, the MUTCD is the brainchild of not government officials. It's some sort of engineers or association that the government then adopts. Is that correct?
Correct. It's a national publication published by the U.S. Department of Transportation. FHWA, just making sure I'm remembering correctly. It is prepared by a body of engineers. It is then each state is promulgated to determine how they are going to apply traffic control devices. The principle behind it is that no matter where you travel at in the country, you understand what the traffic control devices mean. So each state then decides to adopt the MUTCD or adopt their own manual that complies with the MUTCD. In the state of Florida, that is delegated to the Florida Department of Transportation. They have decided to adopt the MUTCD in its entirety. That is adopted through the Florida Administrative Code through the rulemaking process.
Okay, and then what is the ability for the city or municipality to get a determination on, exemptions is the wrong word, but continuing to have non-compliant traffic control devices under the letter that I think we got?
So in this particular case, and discussed it with each engineer within our organization that practice traffic engineering. In this particular case, the way that the language and the manuals are written, there is no flexibility on these devices we're discussing. The way these manuals are prepared, there are standards, and when you look through them, it's the bold text, it says standard in front of it. Sometimes those sections, those subsections say or engineering judgment can be applied, and then there is flexibility. In the particular cases that we're looking at here, there is no flexibility. It's the standard, we must comply with them.
But I guess my question is that the letter describes some sort of permission from FDOT.
So it allows, in the case of a traffic control purpose,
Traffic control or traffic including safety?
traffic control's safety purpose.
Okay. I'm getting to the idea that safety is a valid purpose as opposed to just merely controlling, or maybe everything is safety. So I'm trying to understand, is there a way to at least ask for permission for devices that are in our city?
So in this particular case, the standard in the MUTCD indicates if you are using the aesthetic surface treatments, they cannot encourage people to interact with it, to remain in the roadway, etc. It has to be a crosswalk where you just basically cross the roadway, don't really notice it, don't pay attention to it, don't acknowledge it almost. And in this particular case, that is not how they have functioned in this community.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. So stop bars encourage people to stop, and crosswalks and stop signs, and all these other things we have encourage people to stop, to slow down, to yield, to spend more physical time, but for some reason, aesthetics are not allowed to do it. Is that kind of what I'm understanding? It's that this portion of the idea of lane markings or traffic control devices, those are the ones that can't, as you said, encourage any other further interaction of either stopping, slowing. So all the other ones can do it, but just not the aesthetic ones, or let's say art.
So yes, these are not traffic control devices. They are art aesthetic surface treatments. As such, they should not give any indication to anybody who is using the transportation facility.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Singleton. I know there's going to be lots of comments. I think there's going to be lots of things to hear. I have a motion that I'll be prepared to hear, but I think there's some brainstorming that we're going to hear in the community first, and I will definitely have a statement about this. But thank you, Mr. Singleton, for all those answers, and thank you to city staff for understanding and working through the attorney understanding the letters, and all the city staff and engineers understanding, with FDOT, the situation we're under, and being prepared for today's meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Willets. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. So in 2019, when we passed the rainbow crossings, how are we able to do that then? And then what is the difference now?
So back in 2019, there was a different edition of the MUTCD and the Florida Green Book that were published at that time. These sections did not exist in those manuals at that point in time. Earlier this year, there was a new edition of the Green Book adopted, which covers that first bullet point. And then also earlier this year, those last two bullet points, those were adopted in the MUTCD. So there was a lot more flexibility in the prior iterations of the manuals. With these regulations, that flexibility has been taken away.
Mm-hmm. All right, so then the authority to make the changes, it's not coming from the legislature, it's just coming from MUTCD and FDOT.
Yes and no. Federal agency adopts publishes the MUTCD. The Florida legislator delegates to FDOT to establish what manual controls traffic, and via the rulemaking process, FDOT adopts the MUTCD as the law in the state of Florida.
Okay, thank you. I have one final question, and you'll get a kick out of this one. Is there a defined measurement for bike lanes with MUTCD?
That is not, the defined measurement for a bike lane is not in the MUTCD, it's actually in the Florida Green Book, that's referenced here as well. The minimum width of a bike lane is a functional width of 5 feet. So if you have a flush shoulder roadway, which is a roadway without curb and gutter, from the white line to the edge of the road, it needs to be at least 5 feet. If you have a curbed roadway, if it's a type F curb, you can have 4 foot of pavement, and that gutter pan works as the rest of the functional width. So about
Okay.
5 feet is the minimum.
All right, and then what's the width of the bike lanes on 8th Avenue between Main Street and 6th Street?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I can
I
look at
think
the
I
plans
recall
and let you know.
11. I think I recall 11.
I believe that entire lane might be 11, but I don't think, once we put the buffer in, I don't think the entire bike lane width is 11 foot, but I'd have to go back and look at the plans.
Okay, so that's something we decided to do. That was not mandated.
So it was design that was prepared by a consultant working on behalf of the city. And the configuration was coordinated and approved by FDOT. It is ultimately their decision on how 8th Avenue was marked and what the cross-section looked like.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I don't see any other lights. Let's, while we wait for folks to generate some ideas, let's go ahead and start hearing from the public.
I'm going to call these in 5 at a time because we do have a number of people downstairs. Dex Lewis, followed by Zachary Bongiovanni, Dottie Faisby, Danny Trespalacios, and Jan Zumbrin.
Welcome, Dex.
Mayor, Commissioners, I did not come here today to ask you to vote against the removal of the crosswalks. I do understand that you can't do that. I voted for most of you. I trusted you then. I trust you now, and I'd like to think that we can trust you going forward, especially when it comes to listening to some of these ideas, some of which I've heard, and I think that the community would probably like to move forward with them. I'm here today because silence is not an option. We are living under a system that wants to erase us, and it's hard to sit with that. It's hard because I was part of the board that helped work to install those crosswalks. It's hard because every time I see them, I think of Terry Fleming, his legacy, his fight for this community. And most of all, it's painful to think about the kids, the queer youth, who struggle every single day. We used to try to assure them, hang in there, we'd say. It gets better. But today, those words ring hollow. Today, I don't know that I believe them anymore. And that's why I'm here, because maybe if we speak up, if we refuse to go quietly, we can begin to make those words true again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zachary Bongiovanni, Dottie Fabici, Danny Trespalacios, Jan Zumbrin, and Mr. Kim Popejoy.
Welcome.
I wish I was not going after them. A lot better than what I probably have to say. So, would like to keep the crosswalks, but obviously if the choice is 3 crosswalks or you said potentially millions of dollars of funding, I get it. I just wanted to run an idea by, could we just remove the bricks from the crosswalk and move it to somewhere else downtown? Like, for example, we have Southwest 1st Avenue. That will be a pedestrian street closed off from traffic. Could we just pick up those bricks and move them over there or incorporate it as some sort of mural or something? That's something to think about, and about all I had to say.
Very good. Thank you. So I would say when we have ideas about that involve what's become known as the streetery, that's still a street, that's still a roadway. It doesn't mean we can't use that idea. Definitely has merit, but maybe not in that spot because it's still going to qualify as a roadway.
Dottie Fabici, Danny Trespalacios, Jan Zumbrin, Mr. Kim Popejoy, and the Reverend Arthur Lee.
Welcome.
Good
Ms. Bates.
afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. I don't envy you today at all. at all. Feel that most of you are my friends and definitely my allies. I've been thinking two thoughts. Part of me is so happy, not happy. Part of me is relieved that Terry Fleming is not here to see what we're going through. And my other thought is, what would Terry Fleming do? Thank you.
Thank you. So Terry and I actually had a conversation about this before they went in, and Terry's comment to me was, "I don't know how long this will last."
Oh.
So,
Danny Tres Palacios, Jan Zumbrun, Mr. Kim Popejoy, the Reverend Arthur Lee, and Ms. Linda Basham.
welcome.
Hi. My name is Danny. I'm a queer and trans undergrad at UF. And of course, I'm here in support of the Crosswalks, as is most people here. I've been at this podium before for a number of reasons. It's just a preamble. I've been here regarding the RTS budget cuts the first time, and I understand you're discussing that again later. I've been here in support of Palestine, calling for the city to divest from its investments with weapons companies complicit in Israel's genocide. But as I recall, your response was refusal, saying that your hands were tied. That's all to say, I hope you understand that the track record of responses I've heard from this commission in my experiences so far hasn't been the greatest, to put it lightly. Harvey, specifically, I've seen you show your face at many queer events before, and on numerous occasions take the microphone to espouse your allyship and intention to make Gainesville a sanctuary city for queer folk like me, regardless of the state law or UF's ever-increasing hostility. As an aside, again, the UF student government and the administration have dismantled nearly every queer safe space on campus. They enable verbally violent preachers to come and harass queer and femme students. They've given hundreds of thousands of dollars to conservative student organizations to bring transphobic speakers on campus. And they've continuously been targeting the Department of Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies for class and budget cuts. That's all to say that UF's campus is not a safe place for queer folk, and as such, I would hope that the rest of the city is safer. Yet, as per this commission's track record that I mentioned before, right now I can't be certain of that. It was actually while trying to enter a previous meeting here that I was turned away because I had a pride flag folded up in my bag under the claim that it was a political banner, not just a prop. And I don't know who is in charge of determining what constitutes as a political banner, or if any of you are aware of that. Either way, my existence should not be a point of political contention. As I understand, you express strong support for retaining the crosswalks, but your hands are tied, as you said before. The bare minimum you can do now, if you must remove them, is to make a new, bigger, permanent pride installation somewhere else in protest of the ridiculous queer erasure laws in this state, somewhere on a sidewalk, on a participating privately owned property, parking lot, just something to even start to make do on your claim to make this a sanctuary city for queer folk like me. I'm certain that the Pride Center will gladly help crowdfund this money needed for another installation, just as I had the first time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jan Zumbrun, Mr. Kim Popejoy, the Reverend Arthur Lee, Ms. Linda Basham, and Elena Kalina.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm not angry with you. I'm angry alongside you. And I wish you could resist. We have to do a lot of resistance these days, but I understand in this case that resistance is not the option. But really, so our governor and other like-minded, small-minded individuals are somehow threatened by rainbow crosswalks? How sad it must be to be that fragile. Or maybe they just simply want to pile on a little extra hatred and more belittlement towards LGBTQ people. After the history information, which was so interesting, I do wonder where Charlie Johns is now and whether he's still with us or not. But I'll tell you this, Charlie Johns, you didn't stop one single individual from becoming homosexual, because that's not how it works. Lady Gaga hit the nail on the head. We were born this way, and we're not going anywhere. We're strong, we're resilient, and we're proud, and we refuse to be fragile. So what's the point of outlawing these crosswalks? Pettiness, cruelty, idiocy, harassment, all of the above? I personally kind of favor idiocy, but I do think it's all of the above. I will tell you this, because I want to thank you for it. When I walk across one of those crosswalks, I feel a moment of joy and affirmation. So thank you for that. I know that the city leaders and the vast majority of Gainesville residents are supportive of diversity and equality. And I think that we'll find a way to move past this. This is not a win-lose fight. I hear you, Mayor, saying, let's find a way. I've been hearing it from other folks before the meeting of, I've got some ideas. I've heard, I think you're going to hear more today. Let's turn this sad thing that we're being made to do in something bigger, better, and continue to be affirming of all parts of our community. So thank you so much for your past and future support.
Thank you. I have a pretty good idea where Charlie Johns is, but.
Mr. Kim Popejoy, followed by the Reverend Arthur Lee, Miss Linda Basham, Elena Kalina, and Stephen Simmons.
Welcome, Mr. Popejoy.
Thank you, Kim Popejoy, citizen, and thank you for putting this item at the top of the agenda this afternoon. That's very much appreciated. I'm going to go until I have to stop, and then I'll send the rest of it to you guys. Local governments can respond to bullying from state governments by documenting incidents, seeking legal advice, and engaging in open communication with state officials to address concerns. Additionally, they may also consider rallying community support and collaborating with other local governments to strengthen their position. Although state governments have authority over local governments, this can sometimes lead to conflicts. Ways to address state government bullying: document incidents, keep a detailed record of any interactions that feel threatening or coercive, note dates, times, and nature of communications, communicate openly, reach out to state officials to express concerns, use formal channels to request clarification on policies or actions that seem unfair, engage the community, inform local residents about situations to garner support, organize community meetings to discuss the issue and potential responses, seek legal advice, consult with legal experts familiar with state and local government law, understand your rights in the legal frameworks that govern state-local relations, utilize advocacy groups, connect with organizations that support local governance that can provide resources and strategies for dealing with state-level pressures. Explore mediation. Consider mediation as a way to resolve conflicts without escalating tensions. A neutral third party can help facilitate discussions between state and local officials. And I will skip. Jump to local governments facing challenges from state governments can utilize various advocacy resources to support their efforts. Here's some of the key resources: National League of Cities, National Associations of Counties, Local Government Law Section of the American Bar Association, State Municipal League. Urban Institute provides research and data on local government issues, which can be useful for advocacy. The Pew Charitable Trust offers research and analysis on various public policy issues affecting local government. State and regional associations. Many states have associations for local governments that facilitate networking and collaboration, coalitions and alliances, forming coalitions with other local governments, and amplify advocacy efforts. So the point is that you guys already know it's not just Gainesville they're going after. So perhaps there's an opportunity to reach out to the other local governments and advocacy groups and start building a source of support that is beyond just each individual citizen or community. Thank you for your time and your efforts. This will honestly.
The Reverend Arthur Lee, followed by Miss Linda Basham, Elena Kalina, Stephen Simmons, and Heather Eakin.
Welcome, Father Lee.
Good afternoon. My name is Arthur Lee. I'm a retired Episcopal priest, currently active, but I need to make it very clear, I'm not speaking as a representative of the Episcopal Church, simply in my own personal capacity. But the Episcopal Church is historically and presently very supportive of the LGBTQ plus community. And the congregations that I have been part of share that concern and that support, as do I. And I say that by way of giving understanding to what I now want to say, which is simply that I think I appreciate the situation you're in. I understand the rather awful choice that you all have to make. And I fully support you in the recommendation that you're making to go ahead and comply with what the state requires. I earnestly hope that that will not be the end of the matter. One of the things I've discovered about Gainesville is that it is full of remarkably bright, talented, and creative people. And where one possibility of showing support for the LGBTQ plus community is being taken away, I'm sure that we all will be able to find alternative routes, other ways of expressing that support and making our welcome and our inclusion rather obviously known. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Linda Basham, Elena Kalina, Stephen Simmons, Heather Eakin, and Laura Simmons.
Welcome, Ms. Basham.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Just as a very brief aside to Dr. Waller's presentation, in 1965, I was a UF sophomore. I was in Graham area housing, and at that time, Gator Growl was truly a student production with student performers. My Graham area, my dorm area, was accepted to do a skit in Gator Growl, which we did and I was part of, and we mocked the Johns Committee in 1965. We had a heck of a lot of fun, and we got a great reception. So just a little historical moment. We're coming up on the 6-year anniversary of the installation of the Crosswalks. They were Terry Fleming's baby. He worked with city officials and raised their $7,000 cost through the Pride Center of North Central Florida. This is just one example of Terry's contribution to our city. I'm not here to ask you to fight Florida state government to preserve them. I trust you to do what is best for our city and know that when this madness is over, we can reinstall an updated to include a black and brown stripe and a transsexual recognition to hopefully we can reinstall crosswalks at some point. I'm pretty sure I do know if Terry was here today, he wouldn't be blaming city officials for the forced removal of crosswalks. He'd lay the blame exactly where it belongs. And he'd be working on ways to mitigate this damage and insult. I'm here to ask you to name the section of 1st Street, which is just on this block, just outside this building, from Northeast 2nd Avenue to the Hippodrome at Southeast 2nd Place, I'm asking you to name that Terry Fleming Street. Naming stretches of streets for people has become made significant for people who have made significant contributions to Gainesville has become a beautiful tradition. Terry made our city better. I could go on, but time's getting short. I and others would be glad to meet to talk with you about his many contributions. I warned you it would be a long meeting. Not just LGBT issues by any means. So I ask you today, more than 5 years after his passing, to officially recognize Terry Fleming's many contributions to this city by naming the stretch of First Street that I mentioned after him. I spoke with his sister Kathleen as a representative of his family, and Vertigo, his husband, to make sure they were on board with this. And they urged me to be here today to ask you for that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Commissioner Book, did you want to go now, or do you want to? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate it, everybody that's weighing in. And I think what's most appreciated and impressive is that everybody's trying to figure out what are the other mechanisms and the ways that we do recognition and proclamations and street namings that might, the term was used, it was mitigate is what the term that was used in there, but that might reduce the sting of potential impending decision, right? So in ways that say, wait a minute, we value what we see right there, and yet, Mayor, you talked about it, what is the potential ramifications of leaving those 3 crosswalks, which I do not think cause a safety exception, by the way, and I'm in law enforcement, and a few other non-conforming devices is really not causing an issue for our city. They're just not. I did have 2 quick questions. I just thought, since we have a lot of speakers, that was appropriate time when I heard street naming to talk about them. And Commissioner Chestnut asked a couple of questions I had. We talked about any other non-conforming devices, and there were 3 listed. Does that include things like curbs, curbways, Mr. Singleton?
Good afternoon again. As far as curbs, so when we reviewed the MUTCD about curb markings, it is different than pavement markings or sidewalk markings. There is a little more discretion when it comes to curb markings.
That's good enough for now, I think. I was just thinking as I hear folks kind of strategizing, what are other ways that talk about the way we treat each other? And that's an example. Maybe the sidewalks that the city owns are an example, although I realize that might also have some transportation ramifications. And I've talked about signage, event support. One other question for right now, do we have any crash statistics that relates to these markings? Because I was kind of looking at the engineering and operations memo, and it talks about basically safety is the threshold. And I agree with that. Safety is a threshold. So if something compromises safety, we need to make it safer. But I don't think that we have stuff that would align with 3 crosswalks, which are really apparently do nothing but make sure you know it's a crosswalk, in my estimation. And are you aware, even anecdotally, of any statistics, crash statistics, information that might indicate that those things are inherently unsafe?
So we did not pull any crash data for these particular facilities that these devices are on. I will say that the regulations are all based on studies nationwide. So when these regulations are being written, the committee members, the engineers, look at those studies to develop these different standards.
All right, thank you. I think that's sufficient. I know we have several other folks who I would like to hear speak also. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Book.
We're on to Elena Kalina, followed by Stephen Simmons, Heather Eakin, Laura Simmons, and then Joshua Kelly.
Very good. Welcome.
Hi there. Thank you so much for the time to speak today. My name is Elena Kalina. I'm a behavioral science researcher at UF. I'm also a Pride Center board member. I've been a board of director member for the past 2.5 years, approximately. I just wanted to start by saying we're all hopefully aware of targets to federal funding for research, right? And a lot of grants have been terminated. A lot of grants are no longer available to apply for. And what do researchers do? We get creative. And so I'm going to try to inspire you to get creative. We understand that you cannot do anything, that what you have to do is comply, unfortunately. My instinct is not to comply. I understand you have to. But we need to get creative. Gainesville is a beautiful city. We all know this. We appreciate your allyship and your support and commitment to helping create visibility for the LGBTQ plus community. And that's a rich piece of our history. And so I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, but I would like to invite Mr. Mayor and the commissioners to continue conversations with the Pride Center to get creative and to find ways to continue to allow the LGBTQ plus community to be visible in Gainesville. And one way that Zach mentioned, we've kind of been brainstorming is potentially crowdsourcing and having the Pride Center and community members come together to remove those bricks and save them potentially to be replaced in another location in Gainesville that doesn't go against this ordinance. And I think it's a really special way also to preserve the history of Gainesville. So I urge you to consider this idea, to open communication with us or continue lines of communication, and for us to continue to find interesting, creative ways to splash the rainbow throughout Gainesville, because we really should continue doing that. I think a lot of people appreciate that. I've appreciated that. I've only lived in Gainesville for a few years, and I'm unfortunately moving next year, and I don't want to. I think Gainesville, gay Gainesville, is a magical place. It's a magical place in Florida. It's a magical place in this country, and we need to preserve the authenticity of it, and that includes preserving the LGBTQ plus community. So I really appreciate your support again. I know this is not something you want to do, and it's not something any of us want you to do. We appreciate what you're doing, and we would like to work together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Simmons, followed by Heather Eakin, Laura Simmons, Joshua Kelly, and Amy Tress.
Welcome, Mr. Simmons. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Stephen Simmons. See if I can stand up straight here. I don't have a lot to say. I didn't know I was going to speak today, actually, but I'm from Tallahassee originally, and my wife and I moved here from Jacksonville, about 5 years ago. And my feeling about this sign is, for one thing, LGBTQ people have always been with us, and they will always be with us. They're peppered throughout history. You can see them. You can read about it. It's the truth. And I feel that we need to encourage love, compassion, joy, and equanimity in a community. And I believe that the colors encourage and enliven and soothe the people who are often put down. There are so many cases of harassment and just a feeling of not being wanted, not being included. And the thing is they are wanted, they are included. And what I have found, generally speaking, in fact, I'd say for the most part, is that they are courageous, which I think is understandable. They are down to earth, and dadgummit, they have a sense of humor. And we need these qualities. They pick us up, all of us. And I know that some people will be upset with the colors. But I think that the goodness of the people that I'm speaking in favor of means that they need to be elevated. They need to feel elevated. They need to feel loved. They need to feel like they're part of the community. And believe me, they are, and they act that way because they tend to love people of all stripes. They have that tendency. I think that there has to be some way, there are, maybe 3 places where these exist. I think there has to be some way that something can be done so that those colors can stay. I have a hard time believing that something fairly simple couldn't be done, perhaps putting up some signs or so. I don't know. But my fear is the overwhelming possibility of the continuation of prejudice. And I think that that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather Eakin, followed by Laura Simmons, Joshua Kelly, Amy Trask, Benjamin Doak.
Well,
Good afternoon, Mr. Ward and members of the commission. My name is Heather Aiken, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to say, and when I watched the previous part of this particular agenda item, I learned a lot more than I knew coming in. So I wanted to be here to express how important it is to our community that 6 years people have been walking across a rainbow bridge in downtown Gainesville. To feel that joy in walking across a rainbow bridge in downtown of the small southern Florida town that one lives in is a beautiful feeling, and it feels affirming, and it feels like love, and it feels like a hug, and it feels like warmth, and it feels like the attributes of this city that I would hope that we are maintaining and growing as we grow as a city. I also understand that it seems like DOT have us by some very vulnerable parts of our budget. And it sounds like there's not a whole lot that can be done in that direction. But while that rainbow bridge is there, and I don't believe I've heard of anyone actually having an accident on any of those rainbow bridges because there have been people not walking in the crosswalk, yet stopping and enjoying a piece of art, which is a public installation for the community's sake. I would like to encourage everyone, while it still is there, to do just that. Go to the rainbow crosswalk. Stop walking. Enjoy it while it's there. Thank you.
thank you.
Laura Simmons, followed by Joshua Kelly, Amy Trask, Benjamin Doak, and Jane McNulty. Laura Simmons?
She is not present.
Okay, thank you. Joshua Kelly? Are you here? Thank you.
Welcome.
My name is Joshua Kelly. I'm the nephew of Terry Fleming, and I have quite a lot to say, so I apologize if I speak a little quickly. Engineering and Operations Memo 2501 demands the removal of all crosswalk art, stating that non-standard surface markings, signage, and signals that do not directly contribute to traffic safety or control can lead to distractions or misunderstandings, jeopardizing both driver and pedestrian safety. However, I have yet to see any example demonstrating the reality of this fear. The rainbow crosswalks of Gainesville and of many other towns serve as a demonstration of the people that live there and have lived there for so long. It's clear that the FDOT and our Governor Ron DeSantis aim to remove these crosswalks under an ideological pretense. Secretary James Perdue, mentioned earlier, stated on X publicly that Florida's proactive efforts to ensure we keep our transportation facilities free and clear of political ideologies were cemented into law by Governor Ron DeSantis on June 19th. I also believe it's clear that with this memo coming shortly after the June 19th Senate Bill 1662 signage, which allows the removal of state funds if cities do not apply to the memo, I think it's very clear that this is being done for the purpose of political ideologies and not safety. Statistics were mentioned earlier, and I have some data here. A study done by Bloomberg Philanthropies in 2022 shows a difference of minus 17.3% towards crash rates at this asphalt art. And once outliers are removed, it's minus 38.7%. And when it comes to pedestrian behavior, there is a minus 25% rate of vehicle pedestrian conflicts and an improved 27% rate of drivers yielding to pedestrians. Clearly demonstrating that asphalt art is not the issue. State resources shouldn't be used in the elimination of political ideologies. If driver and pedestrian safety was most in mind, there's much that could be done, such as fixing any of the broken crosswalk signs or anything like that. I encourage the commission to, not just allow this. I know your hands are tied, but I know Terry would do something, and so I urge you, come up with a different way of showing this pride, even if the crosswalks have to be removed. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. That was that was Fleming-esque in its brevity and research. Thank you.
Amy Trask, followed by Benjamin Doak, Jane McNulty, and our last signed up speaker, Carolina Cordero.
Welcome, Ms. Trask.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see all of you again. Like many, I wanted to briefly express my concerns about the removal of our crosswalk. The letter we received threatening us with funding removal is intentionally vague as an attempt to, let's not sugarcoat it, erase identity. It's not about safety. I was going to reference the same study he did. I'm glad he mentioned it. Recent studies show a decrease in collisions and an increase in driver yields to pedestrians and pedestrians using crosswalks properly. So this is not about safety. In fact, inclusive cities with crosswalks like these attract tourism, talent, and investment. So today I'd like to ask the board to do a few things in response. Number one, pass the resolution affirming the cultural and safety value of these crosswalks. Include data on pedestrian visibility, community support, economic impact, then make an appeal. Ask for the specifics. Make them put it in writing. I don't want us to obey in advance, especially if we're not specifically instructed to do so. And attach the resolution. Then finally, please request a letter of consistency to show that our project aligns with the Florida transportation plans. If those fail, I ask you to turn this challenge into a canvas. Move our crosswalk to the streetery. Pair it with plaques or QRs that share the history and stories that makes our city so great. Paint city or county-owned sidewalks rainbow. Utilize and install art installations, sculptures, benches, interactive displays that don't alter traffic infrastructure. I don't want us to shut down when there are opportunities here. And I'm so grateful to have heard the support from this community and the ideas that have been brought forward. On a personal note, I moved here 9 years ago, almost 10, because of a need of safety. I stayed here because my children deserved the opportunity to know what love and safety and inclusion and belonging was. We've gone downtown. I've taken meetings downtown specifically so they could stand on that crosswalk, to know that they were whole and enough and wonderful as they are. And as a result, and you'll see the next speaker is my child, they have felt confident to treat other people the way that they are treated here in Gainesville. So I ask that you take these into consideration when discussing the next steps, and I appreciate all that you've done and said here today to ensure that we maintain our culture of inclusivity and belonging. Thank you.
Thank you.
Benjamin Doak, followed by Jane McNulty and Carolina Cordero.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm here because that crosswalk it was a memory. Once it's gone, that memory is gone. Thank you.
Jane McNulty, followed by Carolina Cordero.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jane McNulty. I am an ally for the LGBTQ community. I don't have any wonderful speeches. I don't have any wonderful ideas, but I've sure heard a lot here today. I'm here to state very flatly and without any apology that the MAGA takeover of our state has now infiltrated into removing sidewalks, removing crosswalks. How silly this has become. How disappointing. And I would hope that every single one of us that stands against this cruelty, the homophobia, the transphobia, the xenophobia, the war against immigrants, all of these things, that we resist and stand against it. I thank you so much for your willingness to listen to all of us, to take the time to care about these issues, because they're so important to so many people here. And as allies, they're important to us too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Carolina Cordero.
Well,
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And today I just want to be another voice from the community in regards to the crosswalks. I know that you are in a very difficult situation. And at the same time, I know, Mayor Ward, for fact, you are always behind LGBTQ people and trans people. And I know that you're going to find other alternatives to this crosswalk. Maybe they'll come back in the future. You can replace bricks. We can place them somewhere else. We can put bricks that are white according to the others. But I'm thinking that Stonewall started with a brick. And removing bricks is not going to remove our community. We're going to continue fighting. And yes, the crosswalk reminds us of Terry Fleming. But you know what? I know Terry lives with us. It's not only on a crosswalk. His legacy is within each one of us. And we'll find other ways to honor him. Because to me, that crosswalk is a way to honor those who came before us, and in memory of everybody in the LGBTQ community that has been a victim of hate crime and suicide. So we will be united and we will continue to fight. Now, if you want to talk about safety, give me a break. I can tell you from a perspective of someone who has been almost run over on a regular crosswalk, that they're not safer than one in colors. I think that they are more visible and more safe for pedestrians. But if that's the way that the state government wants to spread their hate, their erasure, we'll see next November what happens. But in the meantime, dear Commission, I know you're doing your best, you're doing your hardest, and I appreciate you all the way. Thank you.
thank you.
It's our last speaker, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you all for staying with us and for everything that was on your heart and came through the microphone there. Commissioner Willits.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Manager, just so we're clear, the three particular crosswalks that we'll be talking about, are all of those bricks or some of those like stamped asphalt that we just painted?
I'll yield and ask Mr. Singleton to answer that.
The one that is right outside of City Hall, that one is brick. The one next to Boat Italy Plaza is on concrete, and the one in front of the Hippodrome is on brick as well. They are not painted. It's actually thermoplastic markings that are on the crosswalks. Basically, it's preformed, colored pavement markings. They are melted onto the surface with a blowtorch. With their removal, I don't know how they will come out. If we just try to remove the bricks, we have several different options we've been brainstorming. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Singleton. Thank you. I think that's all I have for you. I have a statement I'd like to read, and then I have a motion that I welcome some feedback on. So thank you for the community for coming out, and particularly for brainstorming, remembering Terry, and getting creative. Thank you so much for this. I don't think this is a cooperative move or effort between different levels of government to improve safety or make our communities great places to live. I believe it is a knee-jerk reaction that serves no one. There is no nuance for maybe non-state-owned roads or streets with speed limits of 25 miles per hour or less, or on short blocks like we have in downtown where safety is different than on high-speed highways, or at four-way stop intersections. There was just no nuance in this letter. Most terribly, as mentioned in the letter about automated vehicles, I think most terribly this is an action to alter everyone's built environment for the benefit of automated vehicles and the billions of dollars that could be earned, rather than just the basic well-being of human beings that live in our cities across Florida and across the nation. The three art installations that were particularly talked about, I think they're part of placemaking. They are art in public places. They're safety and walkability in our downtown. They are hopeful markers of history. As mentioned by one young citizen, they are also they're hopeful. They're memories of the past as well, and they are inspiration for every person who just needs some inspiration. And I will say they do feel like a hug when you go across them. I make sure that those are the ones I cross because it feels like a hug every time. From Terry Fleming. These art installations did not create the movement of people working to make Gainesville an inclusive place to call home. The movement created the opportunity for this art. In 2022, I was asked if I supported these crosswalks when I was running for office, if I supported these crosswalks and if I supported more of them. And I answered that I supported them, but that I wanted to look at future art installations to perhaps branch out to include other themes and parts of our communities. In 2025, I imagined that we'd be talking about civil rights art, or bright red crosswalks with Dalmatians in front of fire stations, or blue crosswalks in front of our police station, or nature-themed art across from nature preserves, or history-themed crosswalk on Southwest 6 next to Porter's Quarters, or soccer balls in front of Abbey Wambach Park. I thought that's where we were headed, that we would understand that safety, we have a real opportunity for art and safety to be combined. My message to the LGBT community: I'm sorry that we're here today. I'm sorry that we couldn't figure out a better way in years past to prepare for this. Sometimes we have to do things that are audacious and risky, not risky to people's safety, but risky to the effort we put forward, whether it'll be rolled back or painted over. Too many people seek to erase all traces of us. They want to cancel us. Too many people think we aren't organically part of every single community and every single corner of society. But we know we are born into every family, every neighborhood, every community. So I'm so proud that we are here, despite the realities of our world, despite what we have to hear from Tallahassee or DC. We have relied on the refuges that we created, like Gainesville, or like Alachua County, or our chosen families. We've relied on these refuges. LGBTQ people have invented language and invented culture just to sometimes stay unknown to some people and then known to each other. So this kind of art speaks to the inventiveness of our community, to sometimes communicate and sometimes to stay hidden. But we're no longer in a period of staying hidden. They can force us to paint over these rainbows, but we're going to keep on shining. And even if they physically erased my entire community, every single day another one of us is born, and every single day one of us turns, 8 and figures something out, or 15 and figures something out. Every single day we turn 18 and become voters. Every single day there's a new person who figures out who they are figures out who they love and who they need to be and who they need to declare for themselves. So the thing is, we're not going anywhere. These rainbow crosswalks might, but we aren't going anywhere. So I have a motion, and I welcome some editing of it to perhaps get towards. I move to direct staff to request from FDOT a determination on the department's discretion to allow the identified non-compliant traffic control devices or pavement markings to remain. The request should include documentation and rationale for each individual identified non-compliant traffic control devices or pavement markings, add markings in there, for permission to continue as non-compliant traffic control devices or pavement markings. As well as the FSU KCCI Crosswalks to Classrooms report and the Bloomberg Philanthropies Asphalt Arts Safety Study. If no response is received or if denied, at a date no earlier than August 15th, 2025, to begin physically relocating at city expense the identified 3 art installations on Northeast and Southeast 1st Street crosswalks and to remove or repaint all identified green bike rectangles to comply with FDOT demands. The process for relocating the 3 art installations and crosswalks to include community feedback, engagement of the Gainesville Arts and Public Places Trust, and communication with Alachua County with the goal of relocating 3 reimagined art installations to public places near the current sites.
You good?
That's my motion.
Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I was going to say something through all this. I guess I could, and I'll speak to that. But all right. So we have a 2-part motion here. You have the request to FDOT, a determination of the department's discretion to allow the identified non-compliant traffic control devices. I'm curious how that works within the existing law, which asks for them to identify non-compliant, and then that kind of starts the process of removal of those non-compliant. Sorry not to get too in the weeds right out of the bat here, but like, I don't want to put us into a worse position than we already are by spotlighting certain things as opposed to, again, can the attorney or Public Works speak to the process of the identification of non-compliant and whether there's, us sending something that would identify these?
Mr. Attorney.
Respectfully, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if there's any doubt amongst professionals, such as the city staff that you've heard from, or representatives of the Department of Transportation, as to what is compliant or non-compliant with the Green Book and the adopted standards. I think again, I don't think there's a lot of uncertainty as to that, nor a lot of concern about alerting them to that we have a condition that is non-compliant or inconsistent with those standards, if that's what you're getting at.
And I'd have to bring up the statute, but it said something to that FDOT identifies non-compliant. We have to remove them at a certain point, and then they could withhold funds for 5 years. There's an identification period on the front end of this that they have not actually engaged with us. They've just sent out a blanket letter that says, remove all non-compliance or else. But sending them a letter to ask them to identify our non-compliant traffic control devices, I worry could. Like I said, this is getting a little in the weeds, but I don't want to put us in a worse situation.
You're concerned that could trigger a timeline in
Yeah.
which that if we don't get the work done in time, then we're subject to the sanctions in section, 316.0745 sub 7. I suppose that's a possibility. I think I would leave it to our operational, experts as to whether or not I think they would expect any such notification to be imminent, but I don't know if that's a real concern for them or not, and if so, I would ask them.
Okay, I guess more broadly, and I think to the point of all this, because I heard a lot of speakers speak to this, is that that the rainbow crosswalks are important, I think, in the way that a lot of public art is used. It is used to give us our sense of community. We have the Sinopka statue that was released recently that talked to Black history. We have had, various art installations that help help solidify who we are as a community and tell people from outside our community who we are and help us tell our own story. And these crosswalks did that. I will point out they didn't just do that, though. As a father of a 4-year-old who loves rainbows, unicorns, and mermaids, she loves the rainbows just on the fact that there are cool rainbows in downtown, and she will be devastated when she comes down here and sees that they are gone. It has nothing to do with the LGBTQ community. It just has to do with rainbows are legitimately one of the more amazing natural wonders that happen after a rain, but still, it is, I think, clearly this is a social question. This is wrapping things up into the culture wars of everything else, and there are we are where we are. Taking bricks away does not erase the community. It certainly doesn't erase our position where we say, how do we honor and support the community that we have. I'll say that West Palm Beach removed theirs. They also found a way to do something in a nearby park where they put rainbows in. I think we are in a similar position where I like the Gainesville the Arts and Public Places Trust, potentially trying to find funding. I don't know if that's a little too specific for the funding, because I think we have $10,000-$20,000 left in there that may or may not be enough. I like the idea of directing staff to come back to us, and so that we can work with the community, figure out locations where this could go. I had an idea as I was looking through the places in downtown that are open for murals, and there is one piece of LGBTQ history that kind of sits still in downtown. Linda Basham, who was here earlier, actually was a part of that. There was a bookstore in the Tinch building called Amelia's Bookstore. It's also a Women Unlimited, which was in the mid 1970s was a LGBTQ bookstore and feminist bookstore that was open at that point. There's a number of interviews, discussions about what that meant within the LGBTQ community in the 1970s. We own that building. There is a wall there that can be easily painted that I think is something that we should also look at. But I would like to kind of kick it to staff, see where things are, see what opportunities that we have to do public art that affirms our commitment to LGBTQ history and the rich LGBTQ community. And let me see, the art installations. I guess if it were me, I would break this down maybe a little bit simpler and ask for a GPC meeting where they're coming back with opportunities for where public art could go into. And then I do get concerned just about the first part. I don't want to get us get us crossed with anything. I don't know if we're in that position.
Mr. Mayor, if I could?
Yes.
I'm open to, because sure, we could just say, hey, please identify for us. Have them identify for us. I'm open to that tactic as well, just to say, you please identify for us what is not compliant. But I also understand that FDOT is busy, and we also have professional staff who can read regulation to kind of figure out what's going on. So the idea of this was to show that we clearly understand we've received a communication back that we've received, but that because somewhere in the letter it talks about some level of discretion, it uses the word discretion, then avail ourselves potentially of that discretion. And then in the time period, because I believe it's 14 days if they had directed us. So if it's that August 15th is only 7 days away from tomorrow, if it needs to be 14 days from tomorrow, I'm fine with that as well. But I envision this more as, and perhaps it's not perfectly worded, as really just beginning this process, but to make clear that that it's really at city expense, since someone else paid for them previously, and that we view this as a relocation and then reimagining. So yeah, if it's corners at an intersection or a piece of sidewalk on the county property, a piece of sidewalk on the city property, and then if it's no longer considered a street, the plaza around the Hip, the kind of the crosswalk in front of that plaza between Hip and Palomino, whatever it is. I know that I'm personally very open because I'm not that much of an artist, but people have ideas and whatever, and I think we're going to get that. I think our Gainesville Art and Public Places Trust is one of our boards that can provide us a little more. There's lots of ideas, and I trust that other people have better ideas than me. So I try to make it generic, but if it needs to be more generic, I hear you.
No,
But
I think
do you just think
the
we-
art portion is the art portion is perfectly adequate. I mean, it's to include community feedback, the relocating of 3 art installations. I think that makes sense. I guess the first part is a little.
What do you imagine as a better, like, not have the first part, or I'll say I am interested.
I would remove the first part.
All of it. I'll wait to speak.
So okay,
I'll
so
wait to speak.
I do want some sort of communication to FDOT, particularly about the Crosswalks to Classroom study and the Bloomberg study, asphalt, which I have asked the clerk to send all of us, put in the record, because they're real study. One FSU, just to be clear, that's Florida State University in Tallahassee. But I am interested in some sort of communication about their discretion, about asking them, just asking. And that gives us some time as well. Ask them, let them come back, and we figure out what we need to do. You know, like I said, you know, I also want the community to have some sort of a deadline so that they know when we're moving. So this is both not kicking it super far down the road, which some people at FDOT might not appreciate, but it's also giving us some time and some parameters. So this is the nature of my motion, and I'm willing to like work around to figure out something that I can get majority support on. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I'm going to ask Mr. Singleton, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, to come back. We had the conversation about the wording in this letter with the attorney before we brought the recommendation forward. And we only brought it forward because of the directive from FDOT. Last week, we did have the Doge team in, as everybody knows. This did come up, and it was indicated I was not in the meeting, Mr. Singleton was in this particular session. They had already identified 3 of the areas as not in compliance. So they were already in it in terms of, you may want to elaborate on that because you were there.
Yes, so the Doge team that visited us last week, a lot of them were FDOT employees. As part of the traffic calming discussion, they asked if we had any non-conforming traffic control devices identified in the reference memorandum. I indicated, yes, we had 3 crosswalks and then the green share lane markings, and said we would be having a discussion about their removal. Their response was, yes, we already have them inventoried, and we are waiting to see how the city reacts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. You probably want to just hang out up here because I'm sure there'll be more questions. But Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. I think we're faced with the situation that the mayor of Washington, D.C. was faced with when she was told Black Lives Matter must be removed or your funding will be removed. So that was very clear. I don't want to antagonize the Department of Transportation. They've made it very clear. It's very clear to me when they say bicycle symbols, crosswalk markings, or other pavement surface art that is associated with social, political, or ideological messages or images and does not service the purpose of traffic control. We are in serious budgetary problems right now with the city. We don't need to place ourselves any further in any further problems. FDOT is very clear on what they want. I will not support a motion. I will make another motion that says staff follow the directive from FDOT and UTC to begin the process of coming into compliance. That is a motion I will put on the floor once we address this one. 2, anything you want to do with reconfiguring or reconstellating the bricks, I think that can come in a second part. But the first motion needs to be, we heard you very clearly. We are going to move towards compliance. And I'll put a motion on the floor once we deal with this one that's here.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Book.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Commissioner Willis, I appreciate you putting the motion up. I was thinking sort of similar to what Commissioner Eastman said. We're probably not in a position to ask them to identify, and then Director, they've already identified the items that are clearly out of compliance. And I don't think we probably need to invite back staff to tell us, find potentially other items. You know, there may be some, but we are in a position where we're going to need to comply first. And then anything else we do in ways that kind of memorialize or recognize just how we are as a community. So I would say one other thing, Mr. Singleton, a little scattered here, but I look at the FDOT Engineering and Operations memo, and it talks about signals that do not directly contribute to traffic safety. And then I look at the MUTCT, which talks about aesthetic service treatments. Forget it, that's a standard, right? There's going to be no aesthetic. But the memo from FDOT talks about they can approve non-standard devices with good cause. Are those in conflict?
Yes, I believe so. And when I read all the guidance together, I read it in such that you can have potentially non-conforming devices that don't explicitly conflict with the standards in the manual. So some of the standards in the manual allow engineering judgment. So I don't see that flexibility with these particular installations. So I believe there would be times where there might be some type of device that is non-conforming to the manual but doesn't explicitly conflict with the manual. And I think that's really what we're looking at today.
You just actually answered my second question, which was, while they may be in conflict for some types of non-conforming devices, this is not, you don't believe that this would be an example of one, so they've got to go. Is that?
I've discussed this with each engineer that practiced traffic control in this organization. I've practiced it for 20 years. We've had another engineer that's practiced it for 40. George has practiced it for probably about 20 years. We're all reading it the same way. Typically, we can find ways to meet the community's desires. The thing that always comes to mind immediately is when we, in Midtown, closed the lane to provide outdoor seating on University Avenue. That was not explicitly authorized, but we were able to make the regulations work. I don't see any flexibility in this particular situation.
Yeah, that puts us in kind of a, there's no other path there for that, and yet we do need to find ways to make sure that everybody feels just as welcome as they do today in a week or 2 weeks or whatever the time frame would be to comply with state law. So Commissioner Wiltz, I would just think, consider that we might just want to completely follow the staff recommendation, separate it, and then whatever the path forward is for other things, like you've provided good information about statistical information too, that might be of interest to the state to consider moving forward. We may want to separate that and move that for a different piece, whether through a GPC or through a separate motion. But I think our best path at the moment is we tell them, okay, we understand, you're in agreement, we followed a staff recommendation. The time frame's not going to be in the next week anyhow. The city can't do anything in 1 week. From my standpoint, I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean, this is a big undertaking. There are crosswalks and you thought thermoplastics. It's complex. We're going to do it right, but to do it right, we also have to make sure we're safe in even making that change. So that was just my thoughts related to the motion. So thank you for putting that up there and giving us ways to communicate.
Thank you, Commissioner Book, and I'll get to you in just a second, Commissioner Eastman. Y'all, I'm an ACR. My first impulse is always to swing, but discretion is the better part of valor. I think if we invite folks who believe they've been clear to come be more clear, then they're going to find other things to be clear about, and I don't want that to happen. We know what they want us to do. I want us to, I would love for us to find ways to poke the bear, but that is not what we ought to do in this situation, in my opinion. I can't support the first paragraph. I think the simplest thing to do, I mean, most of the second paragraph is the same as the staff recommendation, with the addition of let's, keep things kind of together as they are, so that they can be replaced somewhere else. I would like to be even more broad though, and say, I love the idea of moving those to somewhere that is not a roadway, but I want to think bigger. I want to feel like, what are the things that we could do? What's possible within, fiscal and physical world here? What can we do that really honestly reaffirms, but does not ask, the governor to send somebody down to find everything they want to find. That's just kind of where I am on this. Again, my first impulse is always to swing, but I've learned that is not always the correct impulse. I hate being in this situation, but we don't have, it's not even David and Goliath. We don't even have a little pile of rocks to work with. So we got to use our best thinking on this, and more judo than boxing, I guess, is what I'm thinking. I appreciate the effort you put into it for putting that out there.
There's no second, so we can start back with.
I got you. Yeah. No, okay, Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, I guess we could. It's Commissioner Chestnut said that she would make the motion to do that portion. I do think that the very last sentence of that, which I want to make sure that we're beginning the process effectively. So it seems to me that the best way to start that is to ask staff to come back to us with ideas for projects. I think the Arts and Public Places Trust, they tend to be more focused on, and I could defer to Roxy if I say something wrong here, but they tend to be more focused on, we're doing out for a call to artists, but that call to artist is a specific call to artist at that point. I worry about just kind of throwing it out and saying, well, staff begin a community engagement process, staff community, work with the Arts and Public Places Trust, get this through. I feel like we need to probably start the process of getting a couple of broad ideas and then honing down from that. Is that, Roxy, do you mind coming up?
Welcome, Ms. Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Hello, Mayor, Commissioners. Roxy Gonzalez, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. You're there for the most part.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it will be a call to artists, but we also have to set the parameters of where it is. So we have to first identify the location of where we want the art. What wall or location? Is it a mural? Is it a sculpture? Is it a mosaic?
Right.
Then you create the contract. You put the call for artists, the arts, the APPT board, the Arts and Public Places Trust board. They're the ones that evaluate and the scope, and then we put out the call for artists, and they evaluate and select the artist, pending on what the scope is. So we put the parameters of obviously no profanity, no advertisement of alcohol. We put the scope into setting the size and all that other stuff. And that's how we put it out. We have the choice to do it nationally, or we have the choice to do it internally, statewide, regional, whatever. So we kind of go that route. We would appreciate to be able to come back with those options of what, where, how, and being able to identify locations and giving the commission the opportunity to make the decision.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Roxy.
Thank you.
I think I'm trying to rejigger the last part of your motion so that it merges with what Ms. Gonzalez said right there, but I'll move on and it can circle back around.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think our first speaker this afternoon gave us a great idea, and that was to move the bricks and incorporate them into a mural somewhere. I like the renaming of Northeast First Street to Terry Fleming Street. I like the idea of involving the Pride Center members in removing the bricks in a symbolic way. And so maybe Commissioner Willits can come up with a second motion to address those things. but right now, I want to put staff's motion on the board, and that is, one, to replace non-conforming crosswalks with crosswalk markings that meet the requirements of Florida statutes and the MUTCD. Two, replace green shared lane markings with shared lane markings in accordance with the requirements of Florida statutes and the MUTCD. Three, replace any other non-conforming traffic control devices as they are identified.
Is there a second for that?
That's the full motion.
I'll second that motion.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Commissioner Book.
I think that covered, I think we separate these things in all our mechanisms to move forward. We keep that separate, so the state says, they've given us some pretty clear language, and we deal with that. And things that are not within their purview that allow us to move forward, we do secondarily. And I'd really like to hear those things. And some of the great ideas we've heard are totally appropriate and would be welcome.
Very good, thank you. So before we move to a vote on that one, let me say that for the next motion, what I would love us to have is to give staff and the community some flexibility on bringing something back, and to potentially bring whatever it is back during Gainesville Pride Month in October, so that it symbolically works and it gives staff a little bit of time to do it, not during budget season and Doge season. Yeah. All right, so I don't see any other lights. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Commissioners Duncan Walker and Engel absent. All right, Commissioner Eastman.
Thank you. I want to honor.
Has a second motion.
Oh yeah. Did you want to do the second motion?
We may have three motions here, so.
Okay.
Oh, I was just trying to merge your motion in. Hey, look, you want to take the motion, you take the motion.
Well,
Yeah.
my motion is that we direct staff to bring back a resolution to rename Northeast and Southeast First Street to Terry Fleming Street between the Hippodrome and, is this, I forget what,
First Avenue.
First Avenue.
Second.
Because I know they need some time on that, but I want to make it a motion now and rather than bring back.
Okay.
One item
So
for
we
the
have a
record.
motion and a second? Yes.
The section of Southeast First Street from Second Place to Second Ave already has a dual name.
Second place.
And what
Oh,
is
it does, you're right, yeah.
It does?
So, okay, then from Southeast,
Could be from Second Ave North, but that first block right in front of the Hippodrome is already named.
got it. That's fine. From South,
Can I make a suggestion?
from Harry, oh yeah, okay.
I don't want to interrupt. Commissioner Eastman, are you okay if I go?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. I was just gonna suggest, since he has family that are here, that would probably say, let's rename something. But let's talk to his husband and find out what might be appropriate, and then other folks who are friends and family. And that might give us a better idea of what's the most appropriate area that also fits. I don't know if you think about something like that.
Okay, well,
A portion of First Street.
Right,
how's that?
there you go. To rename a portion of First Street to Terry Fleming Street.
Okay, the seconder supports that.
Okay, so let's do that, and then we'll come back for another motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passed unanimously with Commissioners Duncan Walker and Engel absent. Commissioner Eastman.
Thanks. I was going to move to direct staff to return to the commission in October with projects options for relocating the Rainbow Art installations in coordination with the Gainesville Art and Public Places Trust and with plans for a community engagement process.
Second.
Okay, we have
To bring that back in October.
a
And
motion.
this is just the initial, here are some of the broad, this would be the broad project locations that we could do this in.
Not a finished product.
Right.
But the motion.
And again, for the record, I don't know how those bricks are gonna look when they come out. We will do our best to salvage them the best we can. We'll make sure we replace the bricks with our historic brick stock, but when they come out, I do not know how they will look. The concrete one cannot be salvaged. It will just have to be removed.
I just, to be clear, I think when you said the word relocating, and certainly when I say the word relocating, I'm not saying literally the physical infrastructure is relocated, but more the spirit of it is relocated.
And as
Okay.
much of the bones as you can.
That's possible.
Well, we have tremendous faith in your ability to underpromise and overperform, so. All right, so all in favor, yeah.
I just want to make sure we're clear about that, that do we have to remove the bricks to remove the thermoplastic on the two that are, or is that, or is it that once you start going at that thermoplastic, you're probably going to damage the bricks?
We have some options we've been discussing, and I let Gail come up and speak to some of those more specifics. I don't know if we'll be successful of just removing the plastic off the top. I haven't seen it. I don't think it will be successful, but they might decide to try it because that might be the most cost-effective way of doing so. So Gail's here.
Director Mowry.
Good afternoon, Gail Morey, Interim Public Works Director. So we did look at multiple options. One originally was going to be to replace the bricks, just basically flip them. We also looked at full removal. We do have a stockpile, and they are assessing number of bricks available already. So hopefully we should have enough. That's what we're estimating. We also looked at a hydroblast option. That would be the most efficient, but it also would strip the thermo, but we don't yet know how the thermo will come off. So we are looking at options, and we'll do a test case just to kind of confirm what we're able to do.
Great, thank you.
All right, standing for the lights, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passed unanimously, Madam Clerk, with Commissioners Duncan Walker and Engel absent. Anything else that we need to address on this item? Okay. Thank you all for your time, your attention, your caring on this. I hope that it's clear that this commission also cares, and that staff cares, and that we want to make this as right as we possibly can. And I would urge everyone to remember exactly how we got here, both the good and the bad, and carry it with you to the voting booth when you get that opportunity. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Well, yeah, let's go ahead and take 10. Yeah, because, we can all do that. Yeah. But I always say 5 and it ends up being 10, so we'll call it 10 and make it a real 10.